Hi, Overcomers. Welcome to the podcast. I have a super special guest for you today. If you've read my book, The Overcomer's Handbook, you hear me talk about body code. And in almost every chapter, it says useful resources is body code. So I want to introduce to you my body code practitioner, Ali Kettering. And I'm so excited to have her explain to you what body code is all about because I have found this so useful in helping me. Now, if you've listened to any of my podcasts, if you've read my book, you know, number one, we go to God first, right, Allie?
Absolutely.
We work with God, but then there may be times that He leads you to other things.
Mhm.
And He certainly did that with me. To get some stuff cleaned up. And I've known Ali, gosh, like 3.5 years now.
Has it been that long? Oh
I
my,
think so.
that's crazy.
And we have accomplished a lot
Mhm.
together. In fact, the last session I had with her has been so fruitful. And I haven't even told her all the things. So, so let's get started. Ali, welcome to the podcast.
Having you.
Um, we're just going to have a conversation. I just want you to tell in succinct language as you can, what is body code?
Oh, you think I would be good at explaining this, so hopefully I can explain it well. Because typically what I tell people is I could explain it all day long, but until you experience it, you won't grasp the full understanding of it. Basically, body code is a way to connect with yourself and the traumas and the emotions that your body, your spirit, your subconscious mind are hanging on to. It's a way to identify the layers of energy that are getting in the way of you being your best self. We go through different experiences in our life, whether it is trauma, whether it is losing a loved one, whether it's the loss of a job, health issues, miscommunication in relationships. All of those things have energy to them. And a lot of times we don't process that very well. And so what happens is our body hangs on to it and it creates these patterns in our life that when we're in similar situations later, our body remembers back to those old things and it starts to revert back to kind of the negative way we responded. So, my job as a body code practitioner is to connect with your subconscious. And your subconscious mind is the part of your mind that remembers everything. It keeps track of every single thing that's happened in your life. And so it's very smart because God created it that way. And it's always communicating with us. So, what that looks like is different in all kinds of ways. Sometimes it's communicating by causing you to have headaches. Sometimes it's communicating to you by hey, you keep failing over and over again. What's going on here? And the subconscious is letting you know there's something getting in the way of that. There's something that is contributing to that. And so my job is to connect with the subconscious and identify those negative energies and emotions that are holding you back in whatever way. Um, because your subconscious not only remembers everything that has happened in your life, it also knows what what you're needing, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual, whether it's emotional. So my job again is to go in, identify what those imbalances are, because when those energies get stuck, it creates an imbalance in the flow of healing that God placed in your body. Our bodies, our spirits, they know how to heal. But when those experiences happen, it creates a disruption in that healing process. So I go in and I identify those imbalances and then release them, handing those over to God and saying, hey, we recognize that this is in the way and we're handing it over to you so that the body then can get back to a balanced flow of healing.
Fabulous. Okay. So breaking down a little some of these things, because it's a lot, and I've tried to explain it to people as well, and it's very difficult to do. Um, okay, so energy. Everything has energy.
Everything.
Everything has some kind of frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and So when we have negative energies trapped in us, is what you're saying,
Mhm.
that they can then affect what things?
They can affect your health. Um, if you have an emotion that's stuck, depending on where it's stuck in your body, it can cause that organ or gland to stop functioning the way it's supposed to. I had a woman once who they told her she had congestive heart failure. And we did a session where we focused on her heart. And the next time she went in to her doctor, he was like, I don't know why anybody told you this. Or it might have been the same doctor, but he was like, this isn't
Where'd
what
it
you have
go?
problem. Yeah. So it can be something extreme like that. It can, I have clients who try to lose weight and they're like, everything I do, I can't shed these pounds. And oftentimes we find it's an emotional connection that the body's hanging on to. It stores physical fat in the body. And they're working out all the time, they're eating well, but they don't have that emotional component and balance in their life to give their body permission to let it go. um, it can cause negative energies and emotions can cause blocks in your relationship with God even. That's a big piece of why a lot of people get held back, because that spiritual connection is just as important as our physical health and our emotional health. I mean, all of the different things that it can create. I mean, I have clients, they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I have this problem. Is this something we can work on? Absolutely. There's really, I tell my clients, there's really not anything that we can't work on. I had a friend actually text me today and she said, you would not believe the amount of things that are going crazy in my life right now. She's like, you wouldn't believe the things that have been happening. She goes, is this something that is telling me now it's time to come work with you? And I said, 1,000%. So,
That's great. Okay, so I just, as you were talking, this picture came in my mind of the body and the energy flow. Like we have an energy flow. Energy comes in and out of our body and it flows through our body. If this helps anybody in the illustration, if you have a trapped emotion, an emotion that hasn't been fully expressed out of your body, it becomes a trapped emotion. And think of it as like a little ball in a spot that's stopping that flow. So your flow, comes down and hits, and it's like, no, no, can't go any farther. So everything down from that. Does that make sense?
oh, total sense. The
Okay.
way I describe it in a similar way, it's almost like, yeah, your energy is supposed to flow in a specific way to have proper healing.
Correct.
And when those emotions get stuck, you're right, it's like a ball of energy. And so the energy hits it and it has to detour around it or find some way around it. And that typically is what creates the imbalances, the symptoms that everybody thinks is the problem itself, but it's really not the problem. It's that trapped emotion.
Right.
So yeah, you're correct in that. Mhm.
Right. Okay. So, and then when we have um, trapped emotions, or I mean, you guys find lots of things, and we'll get
Mhm.
into some of those maybe crazy stuff that I've never heard of. But when you've got one of those things going, excuse me, um, when you've got trauma, when you've got hurt, when you've got all these things, we've talked about your subconscious, and it sits in your subconscious. What happens when this stuff sits in your subconscious? Let's say you had, something happen to you when you were 5 and you never had any outlet for getting relief from that.
Depending on what the issue is, or what the trauma was, whatever you went through, say it was something that created fear. Actually, I'll give my example for myself. Um, when I was younger, I wasn't taught how to handle my emotions. And so oftentimes I would be sent to my room to deal with them by myself. Nobody gave me like any instruction on how to process emotions or feel emotions. And so it wasn't until my 30s that I realized that created some abandonment issues for me. And because I was sent to be all by myself, even though my parents were in the house, they were, nearby, But then later in life, when I had my own kids and my husband was a university soccer coach, what I found was happening was he would leave for recruiting trips and he would be gone for a week at a time, sometimes longer. And I started getting physically ill every single time he left, every single time.
Wow.
And it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I would love to have him home and, but this was his job. I understood that. And once I found body code, it started to kind of peel back those layers of energy that had created that abandonment issue that I couldn't process well. Even my physical body was telling me, hey, you need to rest. You need to ask for help because you're trying to power through this and you're trying to do it on your own because you were always taught to do it on your own. So I had to kind of deprogram all of that in my system. And, a lot of it stemmed back from when I was young.
Yeah.
So it creates patterns in our life that trigger different emotions. If again, the abandonment was for, mine, but other people, it might be fear, it might be, sadness, there's so many different emotions and things, but yeah, it can definitely follow you into your adult life for sure.
Yeah. So I've just the other day recorded a thing about introspection, and I haven't posted it yet, but being being able to see those patterns is really useful.
Yeah.
And being able to go, well, why is it whenever this happens, this is my reaction? Although I might not want it to be my reaction, it is. Or getting angry for no reason, seemingly, or just all those things. If you can stop and go and look at yourself and go, oh, I might have something that needs to be released, and it's actually your soul and your body crying out for it to be released.
Yeah.
Please give me the relief. I mean, this is such freedom
Yeah.
to get relieved of those things.
Well, and I think it's hard for a lot of people. It's hard for them to have that
Mm.
self-awareness because, maybe they don't have a relationship with God and they don't realize, they need to be working on themselves and understanding, that He's bringing that stuff forward for them. Other people, they don't want to look at it. They don't want to think that it's their problem. They want to blame other people. My mind has always been, I think, wired to think that way. I remember even at one point when I had my second child, she was crying a lot, not sleeping well. And my mom was like, well, babies just cry. And I'm like, I don't accept that. Like, I don't accept that at all. Like, there's got to be something going on. And then when I found the body code, I was like, this is why I've been thinking this way. It just made so much sense to me. And, a lot of times, even in situations with other people, if we're having conflict with another person, or like you said, getting angry for what seems like no reason, you know, it is more powerful for us to say, okay, what is this showing me about myself? Even if that other person seems to be the problem, I can't change them, but I can change myself. And so when I ask those questions, okay, what is it showing me about myself? God starts to reveal these layers that He's like, hey, I'm trying to refine you even deeper here. These are the things that I'm letting this whole situation bring up inside of you so you can deal with it.
Yes.
And it's a process, but once you start seeing, your life in that way, you're able to make such powerful changes in your life too.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I always go back to, in what got me started on this whole overcoming thing was in Revelation, for he who overcomes. And I'm like, well, what the heck does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is overcoming.
Yeah.
This is overcoming. And I wanted to tell you, and I forgot to bring um, my phone over here so I could read it. So I might butcher it. But you are one of the first people I thought of because in the Passion Translation of the Bible, in Proverbs 31:11, you can look this up when you're done. I always hated Proverbs 31 because never had any good teaching on it. And it looked like this is, the kind of woman you were supposed to be, and that is perfection. And,
Mm.
that everything goes there, that, right? So in the Passion Translation, in this one, it says, she brings him, the second part of the verse, she brings him the spoils of victory. And
Wow.
I just wanted you to know that you are bringing the spoils of victory to Jesus for so many people. I mean, how beautiful is that?
It's, I do feel like this job is such an honor because I mean, so many people trust me with heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things that God continues to make clear to me, he could change everything in every client I work with in their life. He could change every single issue that they have in a second. But there's purpose to why he is allowing them to come and work with me and work through that stuff. And one of the biggest things that he reminds me often, because I struggle with that too. I'm like, God, why would you work through me? Like, you can do this. I don't have to do this. And what am I actually even doing? Like, am I really helping people? Which I know is, I know there's that I am, but he reminds me, he's like, you're making a path to their heart for me to get even closer to their heart. And when he reminds me of that, like I take that as such an honor and such a joy to be able to do something like this for people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I went to school for photography. um, so very different path unfolded from that. But I can see in my life too where he had planned so many different steps along the way of even just my upbringing. And my father is a chiropractor. I don't know if you know that. I
Yeah.
think I do that. So I was very much, in a holistic mindset of a family. And he did muscle testing, which is the technique that I use for the work that I do.
Which we'll talk about.
And so when he kind of just dropped this in my lap and spoke to me so clearly, the most clear he had ever spoken to me at that point in my life, that this is what I was meant to do. I mean, you can't ignore that.
Yeah. No, you can't. You can't at all. Same with me in the various things he's had me doing. You don't you don't want to ignore it because that's where your highest good is, as you would say. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about muscle testing because it is so misunderstood
Mm-hmm.
and or not even known of. So
Mm-hmm.
tell us what you do to tap into our subconsciouses.
So before I tap into anyone's subconscious, I pray and I ask God for the permission to do so. Like I said, I grew up with muscle testing, and so it was not foreign to me at all when I went to my first body code session. But I'm aware that a lot of people, when they first hear about it, they're kind of like, okay, this is weird. But it's really just very simple, and there's a lot of science behind it too, which I can't really explain that either. I'm very much I go by a lot of faith in my life. But I know that there's a lot of science around it. So if anybody wants to research it, they absolutely can. But basically, what it is, again, God has created our bodies in such a cool way that our bodies respond. And so, what I do is I muscle test using my hands. So, there are a lot of different self muscle testing techniques. This one is called the ring and ring. And then there's another one that I started with when I first started doing body code. I kind of take these two fingers in this hand and I put pressure here. So, let me back up and explain any of that. Muscle testing is a way to ask your body yes or no questions. And, if you were here with me, I would muscle test you directly and I would have you hold your arm out to the side and I would push on it. And I would tell you, don't let me push your arm down. And your body is going to stay strong as long as I'm asking it questions that are true for you. Because your muscles, there's energy, again, back to the energy flow. There's an energy flow through your entire body that when something is true, it's going to hold strong. But if I ask a question that is not true, the energy gets disrupted. And so there's a weakness in the muscle response. And so your arm's going to go down. Now, obviously, I don't work with clients, in person. All of my sessions are done over the phone. Unless you're my kids, then they get the lucky, chance of getting to do that. But so I muscle test proxy. So that's just muscle testing long distance. And I do that with, the ring and ring method. And it's kind of the same thing. You make a circuit. So the energy flow is going throughout. And so I'm keeping that strong as long as the question that I ask is true. And so I'll try to break that. And if it's true, it stays strong. But if it's not, it breaks. So you can ask your body anything, what is this sickness that I'm experiencing right now? Is it a virus? Is it bacteria? I grew up muscle testing supplements and food. So my dad would, muscle test, do I need this supplement to target this issue? So on and so forth. And I never knew to test emotions. I growing up, I didn't know that that was a thing. But when I discovered that it was, I'm like, well, that makes so much sense. Like your body is energy. So every emotion that you feel can get stuck too. And if the body is letting me know that that emotion keeps coming up, there's something I can do about it. So muscle testing is basically just kind of that quick, it's like kind of like a lie detector. You ask your body, is it this? Is it that? But anybody can do it. Anybody can learn how to muscle test. And I would actually encourage everybody to, because it kind of takes out the guesswork, especially if you're dealing with, okay, what supplements does my body need? What food do I need to support myself? Because your body's going to let you know. The best example I like of this too, there is a self muscle testing where you can stand. It's called the sway test.
Yeah, that's what I teach people to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such an easy one. And actually it kind of blows people's mind because they can feel their body respond. Yeah. And so basically it's pretty simple. You just stand, feet shoulder width apart, and you ask, I like to start with simple questions that are true and that are false. So typically starting with your name, is my name Ali? And your body is going to either move forward or it's going to move backward. Usually forward is yes, backward is no. If it's the opposite, then that's your yes and no. But the example I like to describe with that is our body usually moves towards what it wants or what is true. It's kind of like plants. We see, what do plants do when the sun is coming from this direction? They move towards it. If it moves over here, they move towards it too. It's the same thing. Like it moves towards what it needs and what it wants. But yeah, there's multiple ways to muscle test. And like I said, if you can learn how to do it for yourself, I always relied on my dad growing up. So when I found Body Code, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to start to do this for myself more often. And I'm so glad that I did, because I've taught my kids how to do it. So they're like, Mom, can you check me? I'm like, you can check yourself right now.
Okay, so how does that translate into you working with somebody who's remote?
So there's a lot of science to that, but we are so deeply connected on a spiritual level that when you give me permission, I'm able to access your energy long distance. And the best examples I can kind of give of this too is you hear those stories of somebody who will just, again, a mom who is sitting in a meeting with, talking with coworkers or whatever, and all of a sudden she just has this feeling that something's wrong with one of her kids. And then sure enough, a little while later, she gets a call and something has happened. That is that deep connection.
Yeah.
And we all have it. We all have that, especially as the body of Christ. And so with your permission, and only with your permission, I can tap into your subconscious, putting mine aside, and check for you remotely. It's kind of like even being on a cell phone. You give me your number and I can tap into your phone and call it up and ask you questions. But it is, I would say for a lot of people, it does require some faith and trust in the process. To me, it's like, it's second nature. Like, I'm like, this has been a language in my life forever.
That's cool. I didn't know that you grew up doing that. That's amazing. Yeah, Allie's so good at this. She can do it and type at the same time. I don't know. I would love to be a little fly on her wall and
Hmm.
watch her do it.
I got a good system.
You sure do. Every time I get off the phone with you, I'm like, how does she do that?
I get the question a lot from people too, like, you've got to be so exhausted. I'm like, actually, I'm not. So again, like but that's the joy of the Lord. He gives me so much joy in what I do. That
And
definitely
and just on the connection thing, and then when you get off, you break connection with that person as
always,
well.
I don't want to walk around with your stuff all day.
Yeah, that's really important.
Mhm.
For everybody.
Well, and so that kind of leads me into it is very, very important that who you work with, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a body code practitioner, that who you work with is somebody that you trust and somebody that aligns with your beliefs and your morals because, anybody can do anything with the wrong intent.
Yes,
And so
and they do.
and they do, unfortunately. So that's why it's always, like I said, it's such an honor when I do have clients that come to me and trust me and continue to come to me for this work because yeah, I, God being at the center of it and making sure that, I'm only showing up to support you is important.
Yeah. So people who would listen to this, to my podcast, would be people who have their faith in Jesus.
Mhm.
But you also work with people who don't,
Mhm.
and you can certainly do that.
Mhm.
You, how does that differ for you? Working with, I know with me, you always pray to start,
Mhm.
and really when you're removing, and we have to get to the removal of the all the stuff you find.
Mhm.
Um, when you're removing it, really, I feel like it's more, you are so much praying that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? It's, you're not just doing the the physical, let's get rid of that thing. So
Mhm.
you're actually bringing God into that. I don't know how to say that. You say it better.
It's definitely like a prayer, and that's intentional. Um, I do work with non-believers, and at the beginning of the session, I make it very clear to them where my belief is, and who the source of the healing that I am, participating in with is. And so I ask for their permission if I can pray over them before we start. And
Wonderful.
I mean, to this day, nobody has said no. If they were to say no, then I would pray silently. But, again, it goes back to that reminder of what God has always told me is that I'm making a path to their heart. I'm clearing that path. And so I always pray at the beginning of my day. I go through my entire schedule of who I'm going to be working with, and I actually pray over them ahead of time too. So you're getting triple the prayers in this session. Um, and to be honest, it's not very different at all. What you experience, how I come forward in our sessions is the same way that they experience it too. Um, and if they don't like that, then they've never said it. And, if they feel like they need to find someone else, that's okay. And I let them know too, your beliefs don't have to be the same as mine in order for this to help you. And I think that's important too. And I also trust that, in the back of my mind, I'm like, but God's going to do what he needs to do in you too.
Sure.
Um, so it's really cool to also even work with non-believers because I know God is working in their life and I trust that my time with them is part of his plan for them and ultimately their salvation at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of prayer, and maybe it's your prayers or maybe it's just God working sovereignly, every single time I have an appointment with you, either that morning or the day before, something comes up that I'm like, what is going on here? And inevitably, that is what God wants to work on. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting. I mean, he's so amazing.
That happens so much.
Yeah.
I do have clients that we have certain things that we work on periodically and even long term, sometimes it's a one and done type of session for the issue that they're having. Sometimes it needs multiple sessions. But it's funny when I have the clients that are like, man, I scheduled and, I was kind of just going based off of, yep, it's time to get back in, but I wasn't really sure what we were going to work on. And then yesterday this happened, and it always makes me laugh because I know it's going to happen. I know that God is going to reveal something to you beforehand. And to be honest, there have been times where I've had clients that are like, I really have no idea what we're working on today. And that's where my connection with God comes into play, where once I connect with my client, I listen, and I listen to what the Holy Spirit is telling me about them and what it is that they're needing in that time. And so that's where muscle testing then comes into play, because muscle testing is really just a way to confirm your intuition and what the Holy Spirit is saying. Because oftentimes I listen and then I muscle test it, just say, okay, yep, is that what I heard correctly? Yep. Okay. Nope. Is that not it? Do we need to be more specific? Which you hear me
Yeah, I
asking all
do.
the questions along the way. So I do. There's a lot of that intuition that comes into play to figure out exactly what needs to be addressed. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Let's kind of walk through a session,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean real quick, and kind of tell the folks what does a session look like?
So when we get on the phone, I call you. And when we get on the phone, I just we chat for a little while just to kind of see, how's life going? What's been happening? What's been showing up? I'll ask, what's been getting your attention lately? And it's funny because I have clients that get on the phone and they're like, I was coming here for anxiety, but man, that argument with my child the other day is now, being talked about. And it's funny because, I do that on purpose. I get you talking, and your subconscious starts to bring things forward to your conscious mind and you don't even realize it. And so we talk about those things. I take notes while you're talking, just to kind of give myself some reference. And then once we kind of get through that conversation, sometimes it can be 5 minutes, sometimes it can be 15 minutes, depending on just what all needs to be said. Then we pray. And I, obviously pray over all of the things that we talked about and just welcome God into that time with us, because ultimately I can't do it without him. And then once the prayer is over, I ask for your permission if I can connect with your energy. And from there, I listen, to what Holy Spirit is saying, to what your subconscious is, saying about the things that we talked about. And then we go through, once we figure out what we're going to work on, let's just say it's anxiety. I start to muscle test and I say, okay, in regards to anxiety, what do we need to clear today? And what body code also is a PowerPoint system. So there is an app on my phone that I use while we're working, and it has 6 different categories in it. One is energies, one is circuits and systems, one is toxins, another one is pathogens, and then misalignments in the body, and then nutrition and lifestyle. Each of those different categories breaks out into other subcategories, and so on and so forth. And so I muscle test through those different categories until it takes me to the final piece. So if we go into energies and your subconscious says, yep, energies is where we need to go, then there are 6 different categories in that. And then maybe that will take me to emotion. And then emotion has 3 different categories. It has an emotional compound, trapped emotions, and a heart wall. And then it'll take me, let's just say, to a trapped emotion. And so I'll count, I'll say, okay, how many trapped emotions are we dealing with here? And I'll count and test until we get the number that we need to. And then I identify on the emotion code chart that gives me 60 emotions. We identify the exact emotion that is stuck. And then we gather more information. We'll ask the body, is there anything else we need to know about that emotion? Sometimes we don't. A lot of times we don't. But sometimes the body does say, actually, yeah, I need you to be more specific in finding out when this emotion occurred in this person's life, which that's always fun, because then people are like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Because it could be from any point in time. It could be from when they were a child. It could be from last week. It could also even be inherited. That's always fun too.
Those are
And
fun.
so we identify what the emotion is, any information we need to know, and then I go back. This is why I take notes the entire time, is so I can kind of keep track of where we're at. And then we go back and say, okay, can that be released? Yes, it can. We're going to wait to release it to the very end, though. We gather all the information we can until your subconscious says, nope, no more. This is it. Now it's time to release everything. But that's basically kind of what I do throughout the entire process. I keep going through the PowerPoint system and identifying every single piece that your subconscious is saying is contributing to whatever the problem is that we're working on. And then once we've identified all the information, we will release it. And the way we release negative energy is 3 different things. The first one is intention, which is prayer. Basically, we're going to pray and just ask God to release everything that we identified today. The second thing, we do add a little bit of a physical, scientific piece to it. We use a meridian in the body called the governing meridian. It starts at your tailbone, goes all the way up your spine, and it stops right here at the top of your lip. And that meridian, if you've ever, worked with Chinese medicine or had any acupuncture, these are the energy centers that they work with. And that one in particular connects with all the other meridians in the body. And it basically we work with that meridian because it sends the message out to the rest of the body. Hey, all of these different pieces of energy that we're all holding on to, we're going to clear that now. And so we also, which I should have brought it with me, I have a magnet. That's the third thing that we use. I have a magnet that I roll over my head, right where the governing meridian is, to help release the energy. And magnets are extremely healing. They help, bring polarity back into flow, which is basically your energy flow. But the way I describe it to all of my clients is, if you've ever seen somebody take a credit card and they swipe a magnet across the credit card, that card is completely erased. You can't use it anymore. All the information's gone. So that's kind of the same concept. And that's the intention that we hold when I use that too. Now, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that at all. That's just my process. And that's what I was taught in my training. But also at the same time, if you don't have a magnet, you can use your hand, because there is a magnetism to your energy that you could just swipe your hand across your head like that. And that helps clear the information too. So from there, we go through everything that we've identified and I clear it. Basically, I pray throughout that whole time. I identify every single thing that we went through and ask God to release it, surrender it all over to Him. And then we check back in and just ask your body, okay, did everything get released? And then from there, I let you go on your merry way. But you are what we call in your processing time after that. So I let clients know, hey, the next few days, your body's going to try and figure out how to function without all of that stuff in the way. And it can sometimes be exhausting. So you might feel tired. Sometimes you might experience the emotions again, because what's happening is the energy is coming to the surface as it releases. And so sometimes you can experience that emotion again as it's leaving, but there are things that you can do to make sure that your processing time goes a lot smoother. And there's 2 things, and you guys are all going to hear this on repeat if you ever work with me, because this is how I explain it all the time. Hydration and your groundedness. So making sure that you stay very, very hydrated is really important at any time, but especially while you're processing, because hydration is a conductor of energy. So it helps move that energy out of your system. If you're dehydrated, your processing is not going to be fun. Actually, it could be totally fine, but it could be better. So making sure you drink plenty of water on the days that you're processing, and then getting outside and connecting with the earth. It's kind of a hippie term, grounding, but there's truth to it. There is a benefit to how God created the earth and the energy of the earth and how it responds to our energy. I kind of think of it like, man, if I have low energy or I'm kind of stuck in an emotion that I'm having a hard time processing, I get outside, I walk in the grass, and I think of it like I'm plugging in to a giant battery system. that is just getting my energy back on track. So it recharges my battery. It helps kind of pull that energy out of my system a whole lot easier too. So I always encourage my clients to ground their energy, to drink plenty of water, and to be aware, because your awareness, kind of like what we were talking about before, that self-awareness is going to be such a gift to you to, one, help you kind of identify, okay, how is this helping me? Like what's changing in me now that I don't have to carry all of that anymore? How is my body responding? How am I responding to other people, depending on what we work on? Because that helps us know the next time we come back together, like, is this an issue that has improved? Or is this an issue that improved for a little while and still kind of feels like it's a problem, so we need to keep working on it? Or, hey, are you feeling great? Awesome. What's next? What else is coming forward now? So the more that you guys can be aware of that, it helps me and it helps you to kind of come back together to figure out where we need to go next.
Yeah, and that's certainly everything you said is exactly what's shown up in my life. And I've had some really dramatic things happen as a result. Like we did a relationship circuit once, and this, I won't say who it was, but this person was saying and doing things that just would send me on out in orbit. And I'm like, this has got to change, because this is not how I want to react.
Yeah.
So we did that relationship circuit, and I kid you not, I got off the phone. This person did I got off the phone with you. This person did or said something 2 times that ordinarily would have sent me flying. And I ended up I laughed instead.
Yeah.
Instead of getting angry, I laughed.
Yeah.
And like right off the phone. Now that doesn't always happen because you've got the processing time, right? So you give yourself grace and, and you just move on. But I'm telling you, people, you will see the difference.
I'm so thankful for the entire process, because I know even for myself, it has completely changed my life and just changed how I see things and how I respond to people too. One of the big things when I found the body code was I was getting sick very periodically when my husband would leave, but I was not very nice to my kids too. I yelled a lot. And it broke my heart because I just felt so out of control. And I grew up in a Christian home, so I had a good, strong relationship with God. And so I didn't quite understand it. Like, okay, Lord, like I lose my temper. I'm mad at them and I shouldn't be. Like, I don't want them to remember me this way. And when I found the body code, I was like, oh my gosh, it's all this emotional buildup that I was never taught to process. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm so much more patient with my kids. And I mean, they don't remember me as a yeller, but praise God, that's all him. But it's to be able to be on that side of it is such a gift. And I would do it a million times over, finding body code and doing the work that I've had to do, because it has truly given me so much more peace and so much more of an ability to recognize when something's off for myself and not letting it get to the point where, I'm somebody I don't want to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that exact scenario happened with me and my kids too. Mm-hmm. Kids will bring out all that stuff. They will hit your triggers.
Well, and like I said, if you can look at the situation and say, what is this telling me about myself?
Yeah.
Instead of my kids have lost their minds, they're not listening, they're not doing what I told them to do. It wasn't about that. It was about me. Yeah. God was showing me through them what I needed to deal with.
Yeah.
And once that was resolved, once that was worked on, They were great. Like even them, like I didn't see it as them being disobedient. I saw it as, oh, okay, now I can support them. Now I can help them through their hard stuff. And man, I mean,
You know,
it's just been amazing.
the difference is huge. And
Mm-hmm.
anybody listening, I want to challenge everybody to in a couple of things. In our society, you often hear people go, "Oh, that's just the way I am."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wait a minute, but is that serving you well?
right,
If it's not serving you well, let's just take care of it.
right.
So often I think people think that healing from these things, healing from trauma, healing has to be hard or
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be traumatic. And it doesn't really have to be. Um, working with Jesus is easy. Hence the body code, right? Yeah, and that's amazing. But speaking of, the other thing was, so you've got people who say that's just the way I am, or you've got people that go, "Oh, I'm a horrible person," and just
Mm-hmm.
sit in it,
Yeah,
or go, and never go, maybe there's something I can do to change this situation, and that is so important to be able to say that.
yeah. That is, I have so much compassion for people in that situation because especially the ones that sit in it and stew in it because like you said, working with Jesus is easy, but you have to understand in their subconscious it's not
Right.
because they are in such a low frequency that any kind of work feels hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, as the person that gets to kind of intercede between God and them in this process, that's where I feel like the prayer is so important. Surrendering it to God is so important on their behalf because, they think I kind of, I tell my clients like some people need like talk therapy. They need to be able to talk it out and hash it out, but a lot of people don't because they don't want to go back to that junk and the hard feelings and the trauma because what do? They kind of just stir it up. And if they're not processing it, they're just stirring it up and it's just staying there.
And it's
And
hitting your central nervous system all over again.
yes. So that's why I love this process so much because it's so simplified. And again, anybody can just show up and just be willing. That's all you have to do. So somebody who's in that low frequency and it feels hard to do the work, they can show up and just say, "Hey, this is what I'm dealing with." And I can say, "Hey, I got it. Let's work on it. You just sit back, you be here, and we'll figure out what's going on."
Yeah.
I love it for them because it peels back that first layer of what is making things so hard. And they start to get stronger in that sense. And then they start realizing, oh, wow, okay, I can do this. It isn't, woe is me all the time. So it's a beautiful thing to witness and to experience with them and being a part of that.
Yeah. Amen. Okay. One last question, and then you tell me if there's anything we missed. Um, Body code is one of three codes. So
Mhm.
you want to give us just a little bit of information on that?
Yeah. So there is the emotion code, there's the body code, and then there is the belief code. So when becoming a practitioner, you have to start with emotion code because what that is basically just focusing on identifying trapped emotions. So you work with a chart of 60 emotions and you basically just look for trapped emotions. And I know practitioners that is all they do. So you go to them and they're going to find trapped emotions and that's it. And they have phenomenal responses to that. People have miracles happen from that. I am of the mindset like, hey, if I can go deeper, let's go deeper. And so emotion code is the prerequisite, and then body code is the next step. And so, like I explained, there's different categories in body code. It goes not just to the emotions, but it goes to, if your heart is imbalanced, let's dig into the heart. Let's see what's going on there. Do you have toxins stuck in your body that are keeping, things from moving out of your system? Let's get those out. Are there traumas that you went through that your body's still hanging on to? Let's get that too. And so I preferred to go beyond just the emotion code and get into the body code because that's what I experienced in my first session anyways. And then belief code, which I am not certified in belief code because, which I'll get to that in a minute. But belief code is basically working on core beliefs that are stuck in the subconscious. And it works with identifying those beliefs and either changing them or it's either just releasing, or if your body wants a better replacement, then they work on that too. I have not felt called to do that certification yet because I kind of already do it.
Yeah, you do.
So I have some other resources if you were to go to a different practitioner, every practitioner kind of does things a little bit different. They kind of do it their own way. But I have different tools that I use. Like I have another book of emotions that I use that sometimes the subconscious says, hey, the emotion that we're dealing with isn't in the 60 on that chart. You need to go to the book that has thousands of others. I also have a book of beliefs that I use when deep core beliefs come up. And then it also has replacements. So that's what I work with. And I feel like God has just been telling me, hey, that's exactly what you're doing here. You don't need to do anything else right now. There might come a time where he says, yeah, go get certified in that. And I would be happy and glad to do that. But we kind of already cover it. So
that's really interesting. I didn't know those resources were out there for beliefs and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't either. And again, God just kind of pops, little tools here and there into my life. I'm like, okay, we're going to start using this too. And, there are certain things that come up in sessions too that aren't in the body code. Trauma bonds are one, resistance energy is another. I'm trying to visualize my list that's up on my desk right now. And those are things that God over time has just kind of spoken to me and said, hey, this is something that's happening. It's not in the body code, but I need you to be aware of it so that you can clear it for people when it comes up. One of the things that comes up sometimes are called negative spiritual gifts. And that one is, God gives us positive spiritual gifts to fulfill the purpose that he has put over our lives. But negative spiritual gifts obviously are not good. They come from the enemy. And basically it's a way for us, it causes us to perform in a negative way. And so, it's just interesting the things that God brings forward that he'll say like, okay, you need to start incorporating this into what you check for. So yeah, so I go a little bit beyond the typical body code.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Any body code is going to be good.
Yes.
My whole group of friends, almost every single one of them use you.
I love your guys' group. You guys bring so much joy to my life.
It's been amazing. And actually the first person who used you, I think she used you too because she was having fertility issues and she's pregnant.
Gosh, praise God.
She's pregnant today. Yeah. So yay.
Hey.
So that's amazing. So, okay. Anything that we missed? Anything that you would like to tell people about body code? And
I would just say, pray about it. Ask God if that's something that he wants to use in your life. Because it is important to show up willing and open. I worked on somebody before where, I was hitting block after block after block, and it just wasn't making sense. And finally, God was just like, they've shut you out. And I was like, oh, okay. This was earlier on in my practice. And so it was actually an email session that I was doing. So I wasn't on the phone with the person, but later on I talked to them and I said, I was like, I think you need to really just kind of pray about this because you shut down. And she was like, yeah, I could feel that. Like I was open to it, but then, I wasn't. And so I worked with her after that. She opened up and let me work on her. But yeah, it does require faith and just the willingness to let God use it in you. So Yeah, that's
That
important.
willingness is important. And
Mhm.
by the way, folks, you can also have your animal work done.
Isn't that wild? Oh my gosh.
There
Yeah.
you've done an session on my dog.
Hmm.
There are people who do just animals.
Yeah. We have a practitioner specifically in our office that works mostly on animals, especially horses too.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
I've got three animals of my own. I've got my dog sitting right here actually. And I work on them all the time
Yeah.
because they can't talk to us. They can't tell us exactly what's going on.
Well, that's
Um,
the great thing about muscle testing, right?
yeah.
You can
They're a
really
lot simpler than people though.
do what?
They're
Simple.
simpler. Yeah. They don't have all the ins and outs of the trauma and the junk. So
Okay.
yeah.
Anything else that you want to leave us with?
No, I just appreciate being here and being
Appreciate.
a part of your journey. And yeah,
Yeah,
just
and I would encourage everybody listening to give it a shot. Find yourself a body code practitioner and just try it and see what
mhm,
happens. Because
yeah.
I've gone from that, especially when not only will God send me to, but there'll be times when I just have not been able to connect with God for one reason or another. And um, I'm not being completely transparent with with the world, with my experience, but um, there are things that our subconscious will go, no, we don't want God. We don't want God. And so Ali has helped relieve me of that in those times of whatever it was that was causing that block. So it's amazing. So now my our sessions are fewer and farther between because
Yeah.
I'm working with God, um, and I've gotten so much freedom.
Mm.
So tools, 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 people. This is one of your tools. Thank you, Ali. We really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next session.
Awesome. Thank you.